Show me the money. That's it, brother, but you got to yell at me. Show me the money. I need to feel you, Jerry. Show me the money. Jerry, you better yell. Show me the money. Show me the money.
The following is a presentation of Hobson Media. Woohoo!
All right, what's up? Not really an opening statement guy, but I will open with this statement. I'm fired up to be here.
This is Church Pew Sports, where we connect sports to life and faith.
Could you repeat that first part?
Take a knee.
Absolutely glorious.
Lend an ear.
I believe it's going to be for the best.
Then get ready to laugh, listen, and learn.
How about you announce that you're getting better?
No matter your team, your favorite sport.
Bowling. Bowling's insane. Bowling is crazy time.
We cover it all here on Church Pew Sports.
And we want to pump you up.
Gentlemen, start your engines, brothers.
Well, the engines are started, and we are started on another episode of Church Pew Sports. It is good to have you with us as we connect sports to life and faith. Bill Hobson here, and as always, joined by Pastor Paul Miller, who is he's checking in from where tonight? Where are you, Paul? I never know where to catch up to you. It's like Waldo.
Yeah, I know. I'm back at home base in Minneapolis. I was in Kansas City for the last couple of days, and I have to say, downtown Kansas City is a train wreck right now.
Oh.
It's like they say the World Cup is coming, but none of the stuff like the infrastructure or the renovations or the things that they promised to make the city all beautiful for the world to show up. None of it's done, and it's not going to be done in time for the World Cup. So it was kind of disappointing, I have to say.
You know, I've heard that about basically every World Cup venue city. I don't know how soon it all happens, but like you said, I don't think it's going to be ready pretty much anywhere. Speaking of the opening clip that we played, Show Me the Money, somebody got the money, but they didn't show the money to the contractors because this stuff is just not happening.
Yeah, I asked a couple of guys, like construction workers and stuff, just kind of that I saw out in the street, and the answer every time involved money in some way, shape, or form.
What do you know?
The money's just not here yet, and so not surprising, not at all.
Who could have seen that coming? As I don't know if David Collins is joining us tonight. Normally he does, but if he did, he would start going off on a FIFA rant about now and how the money seems to always disappear in that world. Well, we do have a conversation tonight that will largely revolve, not exclusively, but largely revolve around the theme of Show Me the Money, because that is dominating not just all the sports world, but again, the focus back in the world of collegiate sports with some headlines that have broken in just the last couple of days. So, Paul, before you and I dive into it, let's bring in our other two guests. Earlier today, we had a string of texts going to our group of Church Pew Sports friends, and man, everybody had something to say about the Show Me the Money idea. So, Paul, I'm going to let you introduce our guests coming in with us.
Yeah, we're loaded with Buckeyes tonight, Bill. I hope that you're okay with that.
Definitely outnumbered, yes.
Yeah, we have Kip Rogers, who's one of my favorite former women's professional football players and good friend, longtime friend. And then Scott Tinman, who is youth pastor, student family pastor in the EFCA. So I've met him along the way. He's in Findlay, Ohio, if I remember correctly. So we got a few Buckeyes in the room tonight.
Well, Kip and Scott, it's good to see both of you. And as Paul was introducing you, David Collins joined us. And by the way, for those of you who watch us on YouTube, I hope you'll watch this episode. We're trying some new software. It's a whole new look for the podcast from a visual standpoint. And everybody who checks in gets to put their own name in and their own title in. And David, would you like to share with the people who are listening right now your title?
No, not really. It's just known about me.
He's the people's champion.
I'm the people's champ.
He's the people's
There's
champion.
That guy. Yeah.
I fight for the people. That's all I'm about.
It's kind of like
people get paid that deserve to get paid, and
the people appreciate that. The people are very appreciative of your willingness to fight for the people. Paul was mentioning right before you checked in that the people in Kansas City who are anticipating a World Cup venue might need you to come fight for them as well. Any thoughts on FIFA, by the way, and how all this is coming together? I always like to set David up.
Yeah, no, I've always been a big fan of FIFA. I think what they do is really above board generally. Their leadership, guys literally claiming I'm the president of everything. I'm about that, I'm about the establishment over the people. Oh, wait, no, I'm the people's champ. No,
right.
FIFA is garbage. FIFA is the second most corrupt organization in all of sports behind the International Olympic Committee. We can get on that later if you want to talk about how many people die building these stadiums and how they try to rip everybody off at every single turn they can get. FIFA's garbage. Kansas City, you're just going through something that a lot of other places are going to go through. It's disgusting that they're allowed to even continue to be an organization, but I don't get to make those decisions. I just get to yell about them.
David, would you mind, because this new software allows me to do some editing on the fly, would you mind if I changed your subtitle to FIFA Ambassador?
Yeah, sure. If that gets me in a door where I can actually say the things I want to say to the people of FIFA, go ahead.
Okay, Paul, our theme is show me the money, right? So it does kind of tie into FIFA, but we're kind of focusing largely on what's happening in the world of college sports with some recent news that's come out. Let's start, first of all, with kind of the scandalous news in regards to a gambling situation that I think everybody sat up and took notice of. Why don't you fill in the details, and then we'll bring everybody in.
Yeah, the kind of the first headline that broke where I was like, oh, there's the money causing problems for people, right? Was Brendan Sorsby, the quarterback who just checked himself in recently to a gambling rehab facility, but you don't really know if it's because he needs to go through rehab or if it's because he's trying to salvage his eligibility with the NCAA. It's kind of maybe a little bit of both. And so his career, at least I think it's Texas Tech, his college career is in jeopardy. They're talking about maybe a supplemental draft. He's under investigation from the NCAA in regards to whether or not he bet on his own teams, which I guess that's way more serious than some of the other ways he could have been gambling. I'm wondering, Kip, if you know any more details about this since it's Tech, right?
I do not. But what I do know is that even my high school athletes are getting involved in this gambling. I have one baseball athlete that I actually had to almost like do an intervention in the middle of a session one time because he kept looking at his phone. And that's what he was doing, was gambling.
Yeah, it's a little crazy.
So
the whole thing is a little crazy.
Just there's a little soundbite I want to play about the Sorsby thing, because there's another aspect of this. Not only is there question as to whether he was wagering on his own team, but even if he wasn't, there's no debating the reality that he's not 21 years old.
Both Sorsby and Hunter Deckers, when they're placing these bets, they're also illegally placing these bets. You're not allowed to bet until you're 21. For Sorsby in the state of Indiana and for Deckers in Iowa. So that's also something that was eventually kind of one of the charges that Deckers pled guilty to, was underage gambling. Part of the Deckers was that he had used, I believe, a parent or somebody else to essentially create an account. I don't think we know exactly how Sorsby was wagering, what books he was using, whether it was all legal, all offshore. Those details, I'm sure, will come out in some fashion, but it is important to note that both were also underage gambling as well.
Okay, so we've got a few layers to this mess, right?
For sure. Like we could have all seen it coming when DraftKings and FanDuel and ESPN Bet all became sponsors of college football and college athletics in general. This one's a little messy. It's definitely a little messy.
Scott, you hear about this kind of thing, and you work with young people. What goes through your mind?
Yeah, I think that this is something that even students are dealing with, just all the stuff online these days. And even you look at commercials, it's either a DraftKings commercial or an insurance commercial or something like that that are on. And yet this even started back in the day when social media came out. You had to be 13 years old to be able to get an Instagram, Facebook, all that account. But I would always see kids that are 11, 12 starting to get into that, and parents aren't watching that, and the different things that can come on. So it doesn't surprise me when it's so commercialized these days. And hey, it's a good way to invest that NIL money that they're getting, right? Because since the stock market isn't doing so well these days, I don't know.
Yeah, I think the biggest surprise for me in this particular story is that it took this long for us to get to this particular story. As soon as we saw the proliferation of legalized gambling and through your phone and just the easy access to it, and then the addition, as Scott was mentioning, of NIL dollars to kids who aren't equipped to handle this kind of income, I guess I'm just surprised that it took us all the way until the month of May to get this kind of a scandal to break. I don't know, David, if you're surprised by it, if you expected it to happen, if you're troubled by it, what's your take on the Sorsby issue?
At this point, I don't think we should be surprised by anything, because we talked in a couple podcasts back about the things that we might see come down the road, like just speculating, because all of this stuff is still so new. The Sorsby thing is interesting because he was one of the top guys through the transfer portal. He's going to be supposedly a potential, I don't know much about him, but a potential Heisman run guy. I mean, it just seems to me like this is, and the fact that they got ahead of the situation and went into it saying like, we're gonna come out front and talk about rehab. Like we're gonna set the standard. So like everyone's playing with the rules right now. Everyone's trying to build their own system, what it should look like, how it should be regulated. And right now we're in the middle of I mean, this is the first of many. This is. So I mean, I'm just interested to see where this goes in the future. But the Sorsby thing's fascinating because, again, they came out publicly before it was released that he had been caught gambling, saying he has admitted he has gambling issues. He's going to gambling rehab before the season. Like all of this is like, again, we're just playing with like Play-Doh right here, trying to figure out what shape we want to make it into. And they figured the best thing to do was let's get out in front and maybe it'll go away before it becomes a major issue. I don't know what the next step on this is going to look like, but like now he's dealing with potential eligibility, all that stuff.
Yeah. Well,
it's a fascinating time. What's that?
Well, this is probably a lot deeper than we know if this is just coming to the surface. And universities, whatever the education or policies they're going to have to put in place with this. But obviously, even like it's happening with high school students too. Like the baseball player that I've had in my office, like for 2 weeks. And I finally was like, just 2 weeks of this continuing to look at the phone. I'm like, we have an issue here.
Yeah, well, live betting has been one of the biggest issues with all this because it's one thing when you set
everything. It's almost every sport,
every play, every tennis match, of every
right.
It's all over the place. So I think like what's interesting with all of that is the live betting is really what locks people into like true addiction. Like I used to do it
all the time.
Exactly, because you need to know every point. Like I used to do a little bit of online gambling, like when it was legalized, et cetera. But it's like I put an amount in at the beginning of the football season, and once that money's gone, that's gone. So it's like it's a different vibe than when it's like, hey, is the next basket a 2 or a 3-pointer? Like now I have to watch like every moment of that game, and like you said, you're constantly checking the phone and figuring out. It can really be something, especially in today's like day and age where people are obsessed with stuff like that and social media and their phones and everything's so prevalent. I can absolutely imagine that this is happening in high schools everywhere.
So do you have to shut down player eligibility the moment that the awareness kicks in, Scott, so that there's, I don't know, so it sends a message? I don't really know what the best way would be to handle all of it, but it seems like there's some, you can't let the guys continue to play because we're not that far away from the moment where somebody is betting on their own team, where we discover that maybe it's this case, maybe it's the next one, but you can't tell me that they're suddenly going to show restraint in the face of possibly winning, 6 figures. I don't know, Scott. So what would you do if you're the AD or if you're the commissioner of the conference?
A commissioner of the conference that actually has some kind of teeth to it, or the one that just shows up to pass the trophy. I think that's the big deal. Like there's no who is the governing body? Who makes decisions? Who can really put the hammer down, so to speak? And is this just for the big games, or is it for the small games, the non-conference ones that don't really matter? There's so many layers to it that I don't know what you do with that. Does this all of a sudden open up the thing that, hey, what Pete Rose did wasn't really so bad?
Art Schleister. Right?
Yeah.
What happened? His decision making.
Well, he served time. I mean, that was right. That was with Schleister. That was, and it was over and over again. I mean,
it was like nothing now. Right.
Yeah, very, very repetitive. So we've got that issue under the premise or the umbrella of show me the money. We've got the Sorsby issue, the gambling issue, which I think we've all agreed is not going to be the last time we hear something like this happening in the collegiate world. And then, Paul, we have this unique situation, number 2, where Nebraska is heading to the courts. Yeah. Again, the lawyers are going to do pretty well with all this, suing the College Sports Commission, not the commissioner, because we don't have one of those, but the commission over NIL. What's going on there?
Yeah, I don't know if you guys have caught this headline, but if you remember that when all the NIL stuff, when they were trying to figure out how to called the College Sports Commission, and they said that these guys were going to have to approve any NIL deal over a certain amount of money. And we now have our first contested case where I think it's like 18 or so Nebraska football players had their NIL deals rejected because they were third party. It's kind of a workaround. If they sign these things with a media rights organization that has some type of affiliation to the university, then they can just get paid and it doesn't go against their quote salary cap and everything else. So it's just totally a workaround, and it's like neutering all the potency of the NCAA trying to govern anything. So it's a pretty big case. Nebraska's arguing that the College Sports Commission is overstepping because there's Nebraska state law that says athletes cannot be punished for lawful NIL activity. So now it's who's really in charge, the state or the CSC? And the CSC is arguing that it has to enforce national standards. Remember the House versus NCAA settlement, which we talked about quite a bit, right? They're just disguised play-for-play deals. That's what the CSC is saying. So if Nebraska wins this case, then schools and states with like athlete-friendly NIL state laws are effectively going to be able to bypass any kind of national enforcement such as it is. So it's one to pay attention to. I don't know if any of you have thoughts or whatever. If this is just the tip of the iceberg or the first one of many, I have no idea.
Wow. Scott?
Who's in charge?
Exactly.
Who would have thought someone would find a loophole? Come on now.
But this is Scott, you're bringing up such an interesting point to me, because this is happening in the NBA with the Los Angeles Clippers and Kawhi Leonard, who went with a company that the owner and other people like were investing in order to pay him multiple millions of dollars, so it didn't hit their salary cap, so they didn't have to pay luxury tax, so it didn't get them to a second apron, so they had to pay more money. Like, it's insanity, but it's happening in the NBA and no one seems to care. Now it's going to happen in college, and it's such a big deal. But I think the biggest issue with all this, and I've been saying this from the beginning, is there is no uniform language on any of these NIL contracts. We have no idea what the language is, when it's Michigan giving Underwood however many millions, or Sorsby, or any of these things. We don't know what clauses are in there. We don't know if there's behavioral clauses. We don't know if there's gambling clauses. We don't know anything. It's all this stuff is so like under the radar, and it's hard to even put a judgment on like, well, this is how it should be, or here's who's failing, or because it's all completely under the no idea what's going on.
So
welcome to professional sports.
Yeah. So Kip, as you deal with college athletes, and there's got to be a swirl of confusion around them. Yes, it's a full-time job to be a college athlete. It's becoming a full-time paid job to be a college athlete, at least one that's got some stature and is going to make a difference for the program. And I would think that they are drowning in questions about how to navigate this bizarre new world because there's no guardrails really to navigate it unless you bring to it your own personal guidelines and integrity and kind of make your own rules. So what do you tell these young people?
Well, it's the parents too and the athletes. It's very confusing. And I will say too, some of the college coaches I work with, especially at that lower Division I, I've got a couple that I work with at Division II, Division III level, and it's having a huge impact there too, the trickle down effect in terms of how do I deal with this? Am I even going to find a spot to play now? Everyone's entering into the portal, even at that Division II level. It's much harder to create development. That's not even part of the thinking anymore. Where am I going to go develop my skills? It's where can I even go and play now? The Division II athletes are entering the portal like wildfire to try to get to a D1 level. So D2s are having D3s a harder time sustaining consistency, just like Division I level is too. So it's just creating a huge level of chaos, which in the Hebrew language, to be human, to act human, is to take chaos and create order. And what we are doing is acting unhuman because we're creating chaos in our beloved college sports arena. It's horrible.
Yeah. So Kip, here's the loaded question I would have for you. Do you judge or blame the student athletes or their parents because the system feels so flawed? Like where do you assign blame, or how do you navigate that?
Well, like, is that gonna solve a problem to assign blame? Do we assign blame to the 2% that wanted to be compensated and so utilized a capitalistic structure to do that? Yeah, I guess I could point the finger at that 2% of the athletes who wanted compensation for all their hard work and their name and their likeness and all that kind of stuff. But what's the sacrifice?
Right.
The sacrifice is huge. And we're just now, I think, seeing the tip of it. But even like today, I worked with one of my tennis players. First thing she came in with was what I texted you guys this morning. And even her dad was like, what are we going to do? One of her teammates that she trains with had been committed to Arkansas. And so now that tennis program is not going to happen. And so, it just, but that's happening all over the place. And so it's creating a lot of confusion. You're going to have fewer people I work with, right? I have to tell them, look, there are fewer opportunities out there. And so you're really going to have to lock in and take initiative.
I cannot remember which athletic director it was that I saw quoted today. For some reason, I think it was Kentucky, but it might not have been. And he was asked, is $4 million for a wide receiver a bigger benefit to the program than having tennis, wrestling, and whatever else? And he said, yeah. And I must not. I mean, I'm not the brightest bulb in the drawer, but I thought Title IX was somehow addressing having equal numbers of sports and all that stuff. So I don't know. David, you're a big fan of chaos. Is this the kind of chaos that you're in favor of?
Yeah, and that's one of the things I wanted to hit on with what Kip was saying, and I agree with you for the most part. However, I feel like this chaos has been brought on by a correction of an unjust system that was in place for so many years. We had a system that literally didn't pay people for work, that made billions of dollars off their backs, and it came to a point where we needed to open this up and at least explore, hey, let's give these people who have this extreme value for these institutions some portion of their value. Instead, like we've tried to put this like a Band-Aid over it and say, no, it's college sports, student athletes, it's pure. But the people that have been making all the money and getting all the free labor have been the people that now are being exposed and having to explain. But you're right, the trickle-down effect of that, which though I do approve of the chaos because I think you need a level of rebellion in order to fix whatever the system was, the trickle-down effect of that is the individuals, which I think that's where the sad part comes, because I think programs should have schools should have tennis programs and all this stuff, but it's been such a blatantly capitalistic venture for so many years, but with such a small percentage of people at the top making any of the money. So now that you've opened it up, there is a lot of chaos, but I think the chaos hopefully is growing pains for us to find out a way that we can actually make this work for students and athletes all over the board. But yeah, I mean, we're nowhere close.
I don't think it's leveling the playing field, though. It's not. It's destroying it. And there's a wider gap between the haves and the have-nots, so to speak. And you're cutting so many opportunities for kids.
Sure.
Kids, college athletes, but yeah.
Scott, your thought on the chaos and whether, the old chicken and egg thing, whether the inequity came first leading to chaos, or whether the chaos came first leading to where we are today. What's the approach that you look at this for cause and effect?
Yeah, I think the chaos first, with opening things up and not having a structure in place. Now we're seeing all these other sports that were mainstays at schools. They're not there anymore because, hey, we need more money in this program. And I would probably say, at least from my perspective, what I'm seeing, it's like football, basketball are the big ones that are getting the most attention, where the money is flowing and those types of things. Because I don't know, has anyone talked about who won the national championship of the swim and dive team lately? Or
we did a 2-hour episode on that just a few weeks ago. You didn't hear it? David knows all that stuff, and he wore a Speedo while we did it. It was really strange.
That would be pretty good on this new system that you have.
Yeah, it wasn't one of our.
It was on the older system.
It was one of our lesser downloaded episodes. Strangely enough,
he can go full screen on me with this thing.
Yeah, but I mean, getting equity now. We're gonna try doing that now when we've already blown out, throwing money when there's college football players that are taking a pay cut, getting drafted. It's just crazy.
Yeah. So like the logical next step of this whole thing, right, is like the next one in the list of headlines that we were grabbing is the Big 12 signing this private equity deal. 5-year agreement. The conference gets $12 million up front. Each school can now access $30 million in capital and credit financing with a private equity fund. And the total available pool for the Big 12 is going to approach $500 million as schools all start to opt in. What could possibly go wrong? And I mean, like the upside, right? Immediate cash flow. You can compete with the SEC and the Big 10 and your spending and everything else. But now you have debt burdens on the school because they're taking out loans to finance. They're dealing with private equity to finance their athletic programs. And now there's pressure for constant revenue growth. And like you said earlier, Kip, it's just going to widen the gap between the haves and the have-nots, between the rich and the poor athletic departments. Well, it's crazy.
Yeah.
And in an effort to really rein that in, I think earlier today maybe it was yesterday, the CFB coaches came out to publicly support the 24-team playoff expansion, right? So it just continues to mushroom, and I don't know where it ends or if it ends. David, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, because at some point, whether it's the private equity groups, like we, by the way, have seen with Live Golf that we'll talk about later, eventually the money runs out. At some point, it's not now, it's probably not next year, but at some point it runs out. And then what? That private equity deal is similar to, I think, to what the Big 10 voted against. At least 2 of the Big Ten teams voted against, and that killed it for the whole conference. So, David, what private equity, money everywhere, to the moon we go. Everybody's flush with cash, right? What could go wrong?
Yeah, I mean, we're heading towards a world of hurt. And again, I would argue that's one that has been needing to happen at some point because the imbalance of the system as it was. And now we're finding new imbalances. And now we're finding capitalistic approaches that are trampling the smaller guy, the tennis player and the volleyball player. But it's at the same time, it's like we've been looking like to ask the question if it started with order and then went to chaos, or if it started with chaos and then went to order. I mean, we've had a specific order for college football for how long? For how many years? And just recently, we've thrown a little chaos into it. Northwestern tried years ago to get a school union together for their players. That was denied. But as the NCAA has lost more and more power and has lost every single court battle, now it's literally, I'm surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if Saudi Arabia pulled their money out of LIV to put it in college football some point. Like, I truly believe that you're going to eventually, these college football teams are going to become, you buy them low and sell them high. They're going to become a new stock market for rich people. Like Commodity. That's where we're heading.
Wow.
So, I mean, I'm not certain. I don't think there's an end to it because I think there's always going to be one more person that comes up with one more idea that throws a bunch of wrenches in the plan. So I don't know. We're in a Wild West.
Well, isn't it about entertainment, not education?
But they would have had you believe it was about education for years. I mean, they literally coined the term student athlete, so you would have to think of them student first. It hasn't been that way. We always talk about Cardale Jones from Ohio State, one of my favorite quotes ever. I ain't come here to play school. Like, it's been this for a long time. It's just been kind of smothered by this unseen like veil. And that's just been poked through. But now all sorts of issues are coming through. And no idea what's on the horizon, but it's going to be fun.
And Kip, I am so glad that you mentioned this lack of focus on academics because it was 2 days ago. So for all of you listening, we are recording this on the evening of Wednesday, May 6th. So on Monday, May 4th, for the first time in at least 3 years, a school has been hit with a postseason ban due to low test scores. You ready for?
Really?
Yeah, this is for real. I'm reading this right now off of the Detroit News website.
Hot off the press.
So when the NCAA wants to make a statement, here's who they come after: University of Detroit Mercy. A postseason ban for its men's basketball program due to low scores, and Florida A&M football earlier announced that it too would be penalized. So all of a sudden, while the dryer is in the cycle and the tennis shoes are bouncing off, you can hear everything going crazy and it's a spin cycle, and all of us are trying to figure out what's going on and what happened to the term student athlete and what it really means, and is there any teeth left? And everybody's kind of decided, no, there's really not any teeth left in anything. Sitting there in downtown Detroit on the campus of UDM, all of a sudden they get a notice of postseason ban, which maybe they weren't going into anyways, I don't know. And it's because of grades. So, Scott, I'll let you jump in on this. You talk about the 2x4 to the back of the head. At some point, they just randomly decide, you know what, we should really crack down on some academic issues here and see if we lose another case. I don't know. So, I mean, this is one that is really odd to just spring out of nowhere.
Yeah, in the way of, hey, let's try to penalize something that really doesn't make a difference to show that we have some kind of authority. I mean, those 2 schools, really, that's what we're going to go after, not all these other ones. Remember back in the day, do you remember that movie Blue Chips?
Yes.
Back in the 80s.
Shaq.
And just all the stuff that was going on with that, you know, the whole basket weaving type classes that students are taking so that we could get to win. And now we're going to go after these 2 schools that what level of D1 or wherever they're at. I'm not sure, but I don't think that they're going to be in any national polls at all. yeah, let's slap the wrist a little bit here.
It was one of those things that just the Detroit News was pretty prominently featuring, and you're like, wait, this still exists? I didn't know that was still a thing. One last item under the Show Me the Money rundown, Paul. Duke, once again, we should probably call our boy Josh Gilmer and get him on the program. Once again, Duke is trying to do its own thing because we don't have enough splintering of broadcast rights. Tell us what they're trying to do with Amazon.
Yeah, let me run down what I think is going on with this one. I actually love this headline. This is like channeling my inner David Collins, like chaos, right? Like, so Duke signs a deal with Amazon to broadcast three of their basketball games next season on Prime, right? One of the games happens to be their rematch with the University of Michigan, which is going to be played at a neutral site, Madison Square Garden, right? The only problem is the Big Ten has an agreement with the ACC that says they're going to trade neutral site games back and forth. And they have this whole agreement in place. And last year, I don't know if you remember, Illinois played Duke, and the ACC had the broadcast rights to that game. So this coming season, it was supposed to be the Big Ten is going to have the broadcast rights to this game. That Duke just negotiated a deal with Amazon to broadcast it on Prime. So the Big Ten speaks up and says, hey, you can't do that. We own those media rights. And the Duke Blue Devils, along with Amazon Prime, said, you made that deal with the ACC, not with us. We can do whatever we want. Yeah. So now you don't even know who's going to sue who, or if everyone's just lawyering up for the sake of lawyering up and trying to posture a little bit. But this one's a little bit crazy. You don't even know who are going to be the parties that are at odds when it finally hits a courtroom, if it does. Why did Duke do this? Because they can make a ton of money in this deal with Amazon. And so the article I was reading today by Ross Dellinger on Yahoo Sports, he's like, what's next? Like, let's talk about Big Ten football. Like, Ohio State is the biggest brand, the biggest money generator in Big Ten football. What if Ohio State decides we're just going to start negotiating our own football broadcast deals and take it up with the Big Ten if you have an issue with that, which is essentially what Duke is doing here. It's just a crazy story.
I would guess if they don't find an amicable solution to it, that if I'm Ward Manuel or if I'm David Collins, I call up Duke and go, hey, not playing the game. Have fun, guys. See ya. Right? I mean, that's what they're saying.
I'd say, how much are you getting out of this?
Right.
We'll take half.
That's exactly right.
That's what I would do.
It's a 50-50 split,
it's
and
funny,
there we go.
This wasn't the Duke story I thought you were going to bring up, which was they have signed essentially a sophomore going into junior year of high school, and they're going to pay him multiple millions of dollars
in high school
for his junior and senior year of high school, so that he then goes to Duke out of high school. So it's like
funny how those two headlines hit at the same time, though, right?
Yeah. It's crazy, Duke. They're smart and they're looking at ways they can get around it. And
they're innovating.
I feel like, what's that?
They're innovating.
They're innovating, and until there are rules about where innovation goes, people are making it up.
Well, this is the floodgate too, right? And now, I'm already can't stand that I have to. How many places do I need to try to figure out where I can watch the game?
Yes.
It's irritating.
Broadcast rights have gone it's crazy now. How expensive they are. How teams are now selling. I think the Padres or whatever were going to sell for $8 or $11 billion when they weren't valuated anywhere near that a few years ago. Sports teams are the biggest investment, and live sports is one of the few. I have to be at home when the game's on in order to enjoy it in the entire world at this point. And I think something fascinating is one of the reasons that European sports like soccer don't have the same issues is because they can sign kids to club teams that aren't affiliated with schools, that aren't affiliated with any of this stuff. So it's like you can build your own farm systems where you can sign school, and it doesn't affect how this university handles this or the NCAA, this fake governing body. So there are potential ways you could fix some of this stuff, but we've had it established a certain way for so long that until that mold is completely broken, these other ideas aren't going to be able to find their ways in that actually makes sense to fix some of this stuff.
Yeah. So let me ask my second loaded question of the night to any of us. Where should Duke's primary loyalty be? Is it to their university and let's make as much money as we can? Is it to their conference who has this deal with the Big Ten? What's their first loyalty? At the end of the day, it feels to me like that's the $1 million question that's got to be answered in this one.
Scott, why don't you start off on
Boosters. Yeah, the boosters, so they don't have to pony up so much. Here's the thing. I'm just glad that it's not Netflix that they're doing that on, because Netflix is terrible at streaming. Although Prime isn't that much better. Why don't they go to one that you can actually see the full stream on it? But I do think that it's going to be their Duke, the school. I mean, won't that money go right into their NIL money type stuff, or is it going into buildings and different things that they want to do there? I don't know.
Yeah, if I'm the 19-year-old sophomore who came to Duke and I get whatever my NIL money is, and then I see that they're paying a 16-year-old still with 2 years of high school left, 10x what they're giving me. This just is going to create more tension, and it's, how everybody who has a job, you understand that one of the policies at your place of employment is that you're really not supposed to know what the other people make. In fact, in some companies, it's a fireable offense if you do find that out. Well, apparently in college sports, that's not a problem. And they somehow believe that 15, 16, up to 20, well, if you're in Indiana, up to 25-year-olds are going to be able to handle what is inherently going to be envy and jealousy better than fully grown professional adults. And this implosion has got to be coming. And Kip, I would think in your world of being a sports psychotherapist that you're going to be, if you're not already, you're going to be dealing with the kind of shredding of team camaraderie that we haven't seen before, largely because of what we're talking about.
It's been crazy just because I see it now just on the fringes of this floodgate, but it fully has, the gate haven't fully opened, and I'm definitely petrified when the gates fully open. This, even an example this week, it's a non-revenue sport, but she is a collegiate beach volleyball. So the feeder system into the Olympics and that professional circuit of beach volleyball. She's on a team or a roster of 15. She's entering the portal, one of 9 that are entering. This coach is losing, 3/4 of his team. He's going to have to figure it out right before August. And so, that the portal or free agency, if you will, the whole system has really turned into this professional meat market in the business of talent. And who's going to be the most talented that I can get. And it's changing the game where kids that were on the fringe of talent, but good enough to play. Like, I don't know that my son would now play 5 years of college football.
Right.
Given the situation now.
I don't know who's going to.
And even he said to me, the Division II team he was on has won, 6 or 7 championships. He's like, that'll probably never happen again.
Right.
That'll never happen again because they'll never have that cohesiveness that you were talking about. The unity and developing players and feeding them in through the leadership. I don't know.
Yeah. Scott, I was kind of thinking about your world, working with young people, and in the context that we're talking about here, what it would be like if you're at a youth retreat where you've got 50 kids and your senior pastor comes in and goes, "Hey, Scott, doing a great job. What I'm going to do, though, I really see potential in this freshman in here. So I'm going to give him double your current salary so that when he gets through high school and then through college and everything, he'll step into the role, because by then you'll probably move into an associate pastor or whatever the deal is. Okay, we'll have a great retreat. Right. And he walks away and you're like, did he just say double my salary? I mean, this whole thing, this cannot stand on it. It was just absurd on its very face that what they're doing with this thing at Duke. Plus, I don't know of a 16-year-old that I've ever met who's equipped to handle $3 or $4 million. I mean, what in the world? They're still doing paper routes and that kind of thing. So, I mean, that's a really good paper route from what I understand.
But that's the lure back to gambling.
Yeah.
Because even these high school kids who technically shouldn't be are earning thousands of dollars gambling.
Yeah. Well, okay, so it's just from my perspective, and you guys can all share yours if you'd like. We didn't spend these 40 minutes or so on this topic out of jealousy. I'm not begrudging anybody, getting what they can if the system allows it, but it is out of concern for the sports that we love and for the young people who are involved in this, because I don't know. It just seems like the cart is so far before the horse when it comes to character development and maturity that something's going to get run over. I don't know. And the people's champ here, you can speak to that if you have a different perspective on it, because you do represent both FIFA and the people, David.
No, I don't disagree whatsoever. I think that we're at the beginning stages of whatever this is going to look like. I felt like needed to be a change for a long time. I've been speaking about it long enough that I wish they would have had something in place by the time this was ready to come through, if they would have listened to me back then. But instead, they wanted to believe that they had some control over it. And then look what happened. So no, they really don't have anybody to blame but themselves for not having anything in place for when people started to go, hey, shouldn't this person who sells, $100,000 worth of his number on this jersey in the stadium as he's walking around get some measure of that value? It's been something on people's minds for a long time. They decided to do this without the NCAA thought they were so arrogant. They thought they could just put the clamps on all this, and they've just lost in every situation because they weren't prepared for what was clearly on the horizon.
But the NCAA is back, my friend. Look at how they have taken charge at the University of Detroit Mercy. They are in charge. Look out, there's a new sheriff in town. All right, let's go to our holy discontent.
It's time to blow off some steam. Get it off your chest. Rant about what's most bothering you.
I got a lot of problems with you people. Now you're going to hear about it.
It's time for Holy Discontent.
I can almost guarantee that David and I are going to share the same one. So we'll wait a moment. Paul, why don't you lead us off?
Okay, so you guys know that this is the year where I committed myself to trying to become a baseball fan, right?
Yes.
So I've been following the Cubs. They're doing really well. They're having a successful season. And I went to ESPN.com today because I wanted to read up on my Cubbies. And here's the headline I found. Cubs Matthew Boyd injures meniscus while playing with his kids. So this is one of their starting pitchers in their rotation. He's a guy who pitched in that World Baseball Classic representing the U.S. at the beginning of the season. And he was sitting down on the floor in his family room apparently to play with his kids, and he tore his meniscus. So now he's going to have surgery, and they don't know how long he's going to be out. And I'm done. I've given up on my season-long effort to become a baseball fan, because what's the freaking point?
David.
If this is stuff like this is going to happen, I'm done.
David,
I'm out.
David, please, just for a brief moment, talk to our brother Paul about injuries to one's baseball team, if you would.
Yeah, that was going to be my holy discontent.
Yes, I knew it was. I knew it was.
You can turn injuries off in video games. I'd like to turn injuries off specifically for my Detroit Tigers. I mean, you lose Skubal for months. We've lost 4 of our 5 original starters at the beginning of the season. We've lost 3 bullpen guys. We have, I think, 3 or 4 position players on the injured list. I don't even recognize the team that went out there and played these last 3 games against Boston and got smoked all 3 games. It breaks my heart. injuries, like I know they're a part of life, but I'm wondering if there's some kind of NIL deal we can make with injuries that they'll stop like preying on specific teams, because they've clearly decided that the Detroit Tigers, who got off to a good start, they didn't feel like letting them have it easy for this part of the season.
That
Truly breaks my heart.
Way calmer than I thought you were going to be. That was pretty good.
Well, I just wanted to say to Paul,
yeah.
Paul, you've got to deal with these down parts. That's what makes baseball great.
Yeah.
It's 162 games. It's a grind. Sometimes you just got to deal with the fact that you're going to have really rough months.
And at least the Cubs will win another game. I'm not all that certain that the Tigers will. Scott, you're wholly discontent.
Well, I think this has been talked about before with the whole streaming services and all the different ones. Mine goes a little bit more to the times of games, and specifically like the playoffs for the NBA. I'm an NBA fan, and we're starting games at 11 p.m. Eastern time zone and going into the wee hours of the morning. And as someone who is past their 50s now, and the bed is calling, and then in NBA games, it seems to be that it doesn't really matter till the fourth quarter. And so I got to waste all this time waiting till the fourth quarter to see if it's going to be a clutch game or not. And I think I would rather be sleeping. And so let's fix this. I know it's all about which one is streaming. Is it Peacock? Is it Prime? Is it ABC? All these ESPN. I mean, each one gets different kinds of playoff games and stuff. It's like, can we just go back to how it used to be, where it was like two different networks that had the Eastern and the Western, and I know where to go, and it started at the right time so that I could watch both games. So that's where my rant is a little bit tonight.
Scott, in the 7-game series between the Pistons and the Orlando Magic, there were 5 different networks for 7 games. It's a scavenger hunt. It's like you do with your youth group. It's a scavenger hunt. You drive all over town to try to find whatever's on the list. Kip, you're wholly discontent.
Okay, I'm just going to go after these schools that have cut programs that, yes, I work with a lot of Olympic hopefuls and these kids that not everyone is going to be a star, but every athlete matters type of situation. So yeah, University of Arkansas just announced they're eliminating men's and women's tennis. Cal Poly cut men's and women's swimming and diving. Louisiana Monroe eliminated women's tennis. Grand Canyon University cut men's volleyball. Washington State consolidated portions of track and field to reduce costs. Iowa, previously, this was a huge one because men's gymnastics needs collegiate level for Olympic feeder, but men's gymnastics taken a huge hit in the collegiate level. Iowa cut men's gymnastics, men's tennis, and swimming and diving.
Wow.
Minnesota eliminated men's gymnastics, tennis, track, cross country. Clemson, a number of years back, cut men's track and field and cross country. Like the list just goes on. And right, it's just, yes, it's going to make my job harder in terms of helping these athletes find opportunities.
Man, Iowa cutting across the board. My goodness, that's wild. My holy discontent has to do with the guy that you hire to deliver a ringing endorsement of your product should probably not be named John Rahm. Okay, so this is a golf kind of a thing, and we won't spend too much time on it, but the live golf world is falling apart because the Saudis have not run out of money, but they have run out of patience. So they've announced that they're pulling out, and so there is a mad scramble. It is everybody off the sinking ship. Where are we going to go? Can we come back and play on the PGA Tour, please? And the tour is kind of slow-walking the decision on whatever that re-entry would be. So meanwhile, yesterday or the day before, John Rahm was asked in a press conference how he feels because he has several years left on his live golf contract.
I'll say I'm also not a lawyer. I have no idea. I couldn't tell you. I have very few talents in my life, and reading a contract or business are not two of them. Again, like you just said, as of right now, I have several years of my contract left, and I'm pretty sure they did a pretty good job when they drafted that. So I don't see many ways out, and as of right now, I'm not really thinking about it since we still have a season to play and majors to compete for, so it's not something I want to think about.
So I just for whatever it's worth, for those of you who are involved in public relations or in hiring or in employee retention, if at some point your employee uses the phrase, "I just don't see many ways out," you know you've got yourself a winner. So congratulations to John Rahm for stepping up and really delivering on behalf of his Saudi bosses. He may want to have somebody else start the car for him for a little while. And by the way, as somebody who's had some run-ins with that tour, breaks my heart to see him going away.
Right now, this minute, today, this week, I am the man!
All right, it's time for that guy. Somebody we're going to shout out somebody who's doing something the right way that you're kind of, you just want to make sure they get some love for it. So, David, why don't you kick off for us in the that guy category?
Yeah, I'll make it quick. Just going back to the Pistons, I just want to give a shout out to Arsour Thompson. If you watch these highlights of him playing defense, it is freak of nature stuff. The chase down block he had, but it's like he's a complete and utter pest on everybody. He gets his hand on every. It's like it's the way you want to play. And then what I love to see is when you go back and watch some of those replays, is to watch guys that are off ball, like Cade Cunningham, the way he works hard and switches on defense, checks up the other team's best guy at the top of the key, strips him, like moves it down. And then Dennis Jenkins too, just some of these guys that are demonstrating that they may not have the most talented roster, but man, when you commit defensively, when you commit to hustle, it says a lot about your team, and it says a lot about the leadership of that team, which is why I love Cade Cunningham. But Arsour Thompson, you're a freak of nature. I don't understand how anyone jumps that high, but it's fun to watch. So go Pistons.
Not sure when I've seen a better defender. Paul, you're that guy.
Yeah, that guy is a triumvirate of SEC folks. The first is Kirby Smart, the second is Paul Feinbaum, and the third is Blake Topmeyer, who's just a beat writer for the SEC. We all saw the headlines or the quotes from Kirby where he was talking about how the Big Ten is caught and passed the SEC, and it kind of caused a little bit of a stir. So then all the SEC slappies come in and decide that they need to start making up excuses and creating narratives to explain away the Big Ten's current dominance over the SEC. So they come up with this theory that the bottom four teams in the SEC are better than the bottom four teams in the Big Ten. So that's what, like Arkansas and Mississippi State, maybe Kentucky and South Carolina. And I don't know who you would say are the bottom four in the Big Ten, like Maryland and Rutgers and Purdue and maybe, I don't know, UCLA or whatever. They're saying our bottom four are better than your bottom four. So we beat each other up all season. That's why you guys have surpassed us. And then Blake Topmeyer, this beat writer for some SEC, whatever, gets on the Paul Feinbaum show and kind of talks about this, and Feinbaum agrees with them. So I just think they're eating their own, and I think it's great. And I think we have the quote from Topmeyer on the Feinbaum show.
The SEC's battle cry at this point is that they think their last place teams are better than the Big Tens. We literally heard Kirby say that in an interview just last week. Some SEC coaches believe that their national title drought can be attributed to the fact that their four worst teams are better than the Big Ten's four worst teams. I'm sorry, that takes some serious gold medalist level mental gymnastics to believe that the reason the SEC has a 3-year college football national championship drought is because Arkansas is too good.
That's a good turn of phrase. I like that.
That's all.
Yeah, well done. Kip, you're that guy. If you have, you don't have to have one, but if you do, feel free to shout one out.
Well, I have a that gal.
Okay.
Okay, and I'm going to go back to Arkansas. Their
really
gymnastics, good. Women's gymnastics head coach Jordan Weber. She was a phenomenal gymnast for Team USA. She completely went into Arkansas and turned that program around. I wouldn't even be surprised. I don't know for sure that it generates some revenue. That's how good that program is. She is stepping down to prioritize her family and some other interests. And she's been at the helm for 7 years, I think, 7 years, and absolutely turned that program around into one of the top programs in the country that people want to go to. So thank you, Jordan Weber, and your contribution to women's gymnastics has been phenomenal.
Yeah, good stuff. Scott, do you have something?
I do. This one, I grew up on the south side of Chicago, so that means I'm not a Cub fan. So, but for some reason, I have reason to watch the White Sox again. And it's because of a guy that comes from Japan named Munetaka Murakami.
Wow.
I
Well
don't know
done.
if I got his name right.
No, that was
close enough.
Very,
Yeah, close enough.
very good.
But the guy, him and Colston Montgomery are on a tear with these home runs, and even the pitching staff. But I'm going for our first baseman is just knocking out bombs. I think he had a streak that was 5 or 6 games of a home run. I can now, something's wrong. I can now watch the Bears until they play the fourth quarter, and I can now start watching the White Sox once again. And maybe the Bulls, I'm not sure. But, Murakami is my shout out for that guy.
That's pretty good.
I don't understand that though, because the Bears only get good in the fourth quarter. That's
True.
when you want to watch them.
Yeah. Why
That's
start
right,
earlier?
yeah.
There's no reason to turn it on before then. That guy has done something remarkable in just the last few days in a race. Lots of racers out ahead of him. And in fact, for the vast majority, I would say almost 2/3 of the race, he was just in dead last place. And then with some afterburners, some jets kicking into gear, somehow this guy comes all the way from the back to barely eke out a win. And my guy is called Golden Tempo.
Denon Bourbon in front. Both sending a huge long shot. Renegade and Golden Tempo are closing too. Here's Golden Tempo. Golden Tempo and Cherie DeVaux make history in the Kentucky Derby over Renegade in a final time of 2:02.27 seconds.
Pretty amazing. 5-hour pregame show, 2-minute race. Gotta love it. Gotta love it. All right, let's round things out with our 3-minute message.
Homer, I'd like you to remember Matthew 7:26. The foolish man who built his house on sand.
And you remember Matthew 21:17.
And he left them and went out of the city into Bethany, and he lodged there?
Yeah. Think about it.
Think about it. Yeah, Bill, I'm kind of thinking about, we can only hope that the owner and the trainer of Golden Tempo didn't place any bets on the Kentucky Derby, because that would be a bad thing.
Nobody wagers on that race, Paul.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, so there's been so much content in this conversation tonight. The thing that stuck with me out of all the storylines that we kind of followed is the Duke deal with Amazon Prime, because they're going to be in this position where they have to decide who they're going to say yes to and who they're going to say no to. And are they going to have integrity around, is it the ACC? Are they going to have integrity around the deal that they have struck with the Big Ten, that now Duke is putting them in a tough spot with that? Reminds me of, there's so many different verses in scripture that talk about the importance of integrity. The obvious one is Matthew 5, right, where it says, let your yes be yes and your no be no. The other one that comes to mind for me when we're thinking about the Duke story is in Ecclesiastes. Ecclesiastes 5:5 says, it is better not to make a vow than to make one and not fulfill it, right? So I think we should all I would love to challenge all of us just to pause for a moment and think about all the places in our lives, day in and day out, where we have opportunities to stand by our yeses, letting our yes be yes and our no be no. And if we make promises or if we make vows, that we stand by them and we keep them, because integrity matters more than leverage, right? Covenants that you make or promises you make, they matter more than convenience. And ultimately, this idea of biblical integrity, meaning that you honor your commitments even after incentives or circumstances change. You let your yes be yes and your no be no. That's who you want to be known as, is someone who has integrity, and that's more important to you than leverage or a quick buck or whatever might be the thing that's being presented to you. So I feel like there's a life lesson that we can learn from all the craziness going on in the world of sports right now, and it's better not to make a vow than to make one and not fulfill it.
Well said. And I think we would all sign on to the More Integrity Please campaign if you want to launch one, right? Across the board and everything. Coach Kip and Scott, thank you so much. David had to duck out a couple minutes early, and appreciate all of you joining us here for the Show Me the Money themed episode here of Church Pew Sports. A reminder that you can find us online at churchpewsports.com, and join us on Facebook and on X and on our YouTube channel for every episode that we do. In fact, moving forward in weeks ahead, we may actually just live stream this conversation as we're doing it. Who knows? We're just experimenting with all sorts of fun stuff. Yeah, we can do that, maybe. I don't know. It's easy for you to say. I've got so many buttons here. I don't know what's going on. So we'll figure all that out. Good to have you all with us.
Good job.
Thank you all for being here. See you later. And thanks for being a part of Church Pew Sports.